Hi guys, it's Arielle here from Fix My Books, and today we are going to be talking about bookkeeping niches. So I get this question a lot from other bookkeepers that are maybe just starting out, and they ask me, oh, what niche should I look into and things like that. So I thought that I would just make this video for everybody so that, everyone can see it. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so why even niche in the first place? And if you're not familiar, niche, like a niche is something that you are really good at or you specialize in. So in the bookkeeping industry, when you say, okay, I'm going to niche into something or this is my niche, that means that that's your specialty. So why niche in the first place? So first things first, it will actually streamline your workflow. It will make you or your staff work faster, and it will be easier to train staff. Why is that? So if you have basically kind of the same client again and again, let's say you have, 10 bookkeeping clients that are all e-commerce, right? They have the same workflow with all of them, no matter how large or small they are. So you're going to have to, let's say, enter the journal entries, reconcile the PayPal account, something like that. Like your staff will be well versed in that industry, and so will you. So you will get to really work smarter instead of, having a different workflow for each different client. This will really streamline things for you. And next is that you will know the ins and outs of that particular niche, right? So each niche, right, has its own different kind of set of rules. So for example, people who niche in nonprofits, I don't niche in that. They would know things that I don't know. Right? They would know the ins and outs, what is allowed to be charged in terms of sales tax or something like that. They would know that. So you would be really well versed in the rules of that industry as well. And this kind of feeds into the third. So if you're well versed in that industry and you get well known in that industry, then it's going to be much easier to land clients because once you're in kind of a niche, you're going to figure out that most of the people in that industry kind of know each other. So, for example, if a nonprofit is looking for a bookkeeper, they're not currently happy with theirs, another person from a different nonprofit would be like, hey, our bookkeeper is great, try that, right? So that's kind of the thing. It's easier to get clients because either through referral or just like brand recall or just being in that industry in general, right? You start to get more well known. And another thing with the fact that it's easier to get clients, you might actually spend way less on like advertising and marketing because you're already established in your niche, which would actually boost your bottom line and make you more profitable. And number 4, certainly not the least, right? You can charge more. So if you have a niche and you're well known in that niche, you can charge more for clients in that niche because you are not just, jack of all trades kind of like as a bookkeeper, you have a specialty. And because you know the ins and outs of that niche, right? Number 2, you can charge more because you are specialized. There are things that you would know that other bookkeepers who don't specialize in that niche wouldn't know. So for example, where my niche is, which is e-commerce bookkeeping, you're going to have to be really, really good at sales tax. If you suck at sales tax and you don't understand how sales tax works, you cannot niche in e-commerce bookkeeping. Just know that. That's like one of the biggest headaches in terms of bookkeeping for e-commerce companies. And that's kind of why I don't like Xero, because their sales tax function is not great. I would not even dream of doing the books for an e-commerce client using Xero. Again, I'm not a Xero Pro advisor. I've gone through their training, but I just quit halfway through because, and I have a long list of pros and cons, but I have the paper literally right beside me here saying that I don't like the sales tax function for Xero. So Just a side note. Okay, next. So consider these in terms of like niches that you could get into. So number one would be real estate. So real estate is a really broad niche. So just because I said real estate, don't just go and think, oh, real estate is all the same. No. So with real estate, there are different things. So there are PRECs, which is a personal real estate corporation. There are mortgage brokers that do real estate. There are real estate lawyers that do real estate. And these would all be different niches. So just because I said real estate doesn't mean it's all of them together, right? You could specialize in mortgage brokers only. You can specialize in PRECs only. It's totally up to you. So with this, just again, a little side note, I do have a client that is a mortgage broker, and they are tricky when it comes to HST. They have different rules versus other people in that industry, just an FYI. Next, construction and trades. So with construction and trades, it's not just, I'm not just talking about like general contractors. You could have people who are masons, right? There are people who do only HVACs. You could have like just an electrical contractor. So it would really depend on what you want to get into. But just know that with construction and trades, job costing and project tracking are two things they will all ask for. So if you're not good with that, do not think about getting into construction and trades as a niche, right? I'm kind of giving you the breakdown now of like what you would need per niche, or like to know per niche. With restaurants, I actually used to work for an accountant that had a firm that just specialized in restaurants. So I'm actually well versed with bookkeeping for restaurants. The issue with them is HST as well. You have to really, really track the HST because you pay HST on the sales, but you don't really pay that much HST on the food products that you buy. So that has to be tracked very correctly. Most restaurants that I've seen, they actually end up owing a lot of HST payable at the end of the year just because they charge HST on the sales, but they don't really pay HST in terms of like the ingredients they use. You know, if you go to, let's say, if you go to like a grocery or something, you'll notice that most food products like fruits, water, stuff like that, they don't have HST. So yeah, restaurants is another niche that, you know, you could look into if that's something that interests you. And with all of these, just because I say this is a good niche, that's a good niche, if you're not interested in that niche anyways, just ignore what I'm saying. Like pick and choose from what I'm saying, like in terms of what would apply to you or what advice you want to take, right? Restaurants, another thing with them would be their payroll is very difficult to do because there are so many people, so many shifts, things like that. So payroll is difficult for restaurant, and like accounting for the tips as well, making sure that that's all good. That's something you have to think about as well for restaurants. Next is non-profits. I have no idea regarding this niche. I know it's a niche, but I've just never looked into it. I've never gotten into it. So if you're thinking about niching in nonprofits, I would recommend that you talk to someone who works in nonprofits to know more about this area. Again, it's just not something I'm interested in, but just I included it here just so you guys are aware that this is a niche and that you can niche in that. Okay. Next is law firms. So this is actually one of my niches. So right now e-commerce is my main niche just because it's taking over things, but I actually do provide trust accounting services as well for IOLTA accounts. You guys would know the lingo if you are into this world. So with law firms, the first thing you need to know is you need to learn trust accounting, okay? And just because you know trust accounting doesn't mean you can just immediately go into any law firm and say, hey, I can do your books. No. So law firms bill three different ways. So they do either flat fee, hourly, or contingency fees, right? And with these three ways that they bill, each, I wouldn't say niche in a niche. So law firms are a niche, but there's another niche inside law firms, which would say, I know a lot of people that they do immigration law. So a lot of them are flat fee, let's say, which is let's say, okay, I'll do this for you for, I'll process your visa for let's say $1,000. So that's a flat fee type of situation. Most immigration lawyers are flat fee. However, a lot of lawyers are also on hourly billing. So that's a totally different type of billing versus flat fee. And which I've heard from all the other people in the trust accounting world that I am part of, that contingency billing, like contingency fees, are actually the hardest to do bookkeeping for in terms of structure, because basically contingency means that this lawsuit has been going on for like a while, and then they finally got paid. So for example, industries that would do contingency would be like personal injury law. So for example, someone hits you with their car and you start suing each other, and your lawyer says, you don't need to pay me up front. I will just take a percentage of whatever payout you get at the end of the lawsuit, right? So what happens with that is all the expenses that the lawyer is incurring while the lawsuit is going on gets billed into that client's account. And then when the payout comes, it would be the payout minus the expenses of the lawyer. That is the percentage that they will take. So let's say you got $1 million in terms of a payout. The lawyer spent 200 grand of their money to cover the fees, right? Like, it's not just their fees that go into the lawsuit, but, paying, let's say, expert witness testimony, things like that, right? So all those lawyers' expenses, let's say, go up to 200 grand for all the years that, you guys were suing each other. And so only 800 grand is left. So if your agreement with the lawyer that they will get 10% of the payout, it would be, they would get back the 200 grand that they spent plus the 10% of the 800,000. So you will have to give them 200,000 for the expenses plus 80,000 for their fees. So it's really tricky to do this kind of accounting, because you really need to take note of all the expenses from the very start, where, that case starts, all the way up to the end when the payout happens. So, it goes on for years. So that's why I'm kind of saying there are still niches inside that niche, right? So that's just something to note in terms of trust accounting. Next is e-commerce, which is my niche, and I really really love e-commerce as a niche. If you are great with sales tax, you're great at following the money, because the issue with e-commerce is that there are so many buckets that the money flows through before it just hits the bank account, that you really need to keep track of that. So for example, Shopify, okay? Most basic thing. It's not just you being paid through your Shopify store, it's the Sezzle payments, right? From someone will buy something in your Shopify store, but you're not getting, let's say, the $100 that they bought, you're only getting $25 because the rest are going through Sezzle. And then Sezzle's gonna take a fee before they deposit it into your account. So e-commerce, I would say, is a difficult niche to master, especially the sales tax portion of it. If you want to specialize in e-commerce, I would highly recommend looking into A2X as a software and learning that software inside out. Okay, next is medical and dental. So depending on your again, there's going to be niches inside this niche. So depending on the type of medical professional that is your client, you may have different rules. So for example, I have a client in the medical industry, and some of their services are exempt from HST and some of their services are not exempt from HST. So you need to know those type of rules in whatever industry that you're in, because the last thing you want to do is to charge a client HST when that service is HST exempt. Next would be cannabis. I was actually asked to do bookkeeping for a cannabis company a couple of years ago, and I told them, look, I'm sorry, I don't know any like bookkeeping. I've never done any bookkeeping for like a cannabis company. I don't know the rules. And they came back to me saying, because the industry is so new, no one knows the rules. So we're actually just looking for someone who's willing to learn the rules with us. So unfortunately, I did not pursue cannabis as a niche, but just be aware this industry is growing and it's very, very new. It's in its infancy. So if you want to break into this industry, the first thing you would need to do is know the sales tax rules with cannabis. It was crazy when I was just trying to learn it, thinking if I was going to take on this client, because the sales tax, okay, to compute it would depend not only like on the province, but the type of cannabis it is. If it's a flower, if it's an edible, if it's a resin, and the percentage of like THC on these different types of things. It was just crazy. Like just reading through it and like digesting it, I already know this is going to be a beast of a niche. So unfortunately, I didn't take it on because I didn't feel like I didn't want to be honest, just because I was very intimidated with this industry. And also because during the time that I was speaking with them, there's this issue here where cannabis is legal, but it's really hard for them to find a bank to take their money. I think that's what they explained to me. So a lot of it is in cash, like they're holding cash, and they would have to apparently do like cash deposits. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but just all of that combined together, I didn't want to go into cannabis as an industry. I don't know if they've resolved the whole banking issue today. But yeah, so those are just some of the issues I encountered when I was looking into this niche. Just thought you guys should know. Okay, next. Oh, is that it? Sorry, I think that's all the niches for today. And yeah, I hope you guys learned a lot of things today. And if you have any questions, please comment them down below. And once again, this is Arielle from Fix My Books. So if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you always get notified whenever I upload new videos to my YouTube channel. And once again, this is Arielle from Fix My Books, helping you fix your books.